My name is Keith Beven, and we're here for another History of Hydrology interview. We're actually at the IUGG-IAHS meeting in Berlin in July 2023, and I'm here to interview Professor Alberto Montanari. Alberto, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be interested in water.
Yes, perfect. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored and pleased to talk to you today and to the listeners. And my background is civil engineering. I graduated in civil engineering at the University of Parma in 1992, actually. And my degree program was a program on land management and river basin management. And I chose that program because in my university, it was a young university, they just activated the degree program in civil engineering with only one focus on land and water management. So this is why I decided to focus on water. But actually, I must say that I felt when I was given this option that water engineering was much more creative than structural engineering, for instance, because I thought that it is more related more intimately related to environment. So this is why I get interested in water. Also, I had a passion for studying the environment since I was a child.
Okay, good. So you did essentially a master's degree at Parma.
Yeah.
And then you already had a dissertation, I think, that was supervised by Renzo Rosso.
Yes.
But he was not at Parma at the time. He was still at the Politecnico di Milano.
Yes, that's true. I was born in Reggio Emilia. Reggio Emilia is a small town close to Bologna, and Parma was the closest university to my hometown.
Okay.
And therefore, I decided to go there because also, the financial resources of my family were not so huge, and therefore I decided that also to take the closest university in order to save some money. And actually, when they started the degree program in civil engineering, the full degree program, 5 years at that time it was, they took some professors from the Politecnico in Milan. And Renzo Rosso decided to take that position. Actually, he kept it for a few years only. But I got to know him in Parma. And then when I took my degree, when I earned my degree, he asked me to take a PhD program, to attend a PhD program in Milan. And I decided to accept this invitation. Actually, it was a sequence of chances that were given to me in a pretty random solution, This is also probably, with a lot of uncertainty. This may be the reason why I got interested by randomness as well. So I took my PhD in Milan with Renzo Rosso. And then after taking the PhD in Milan I also worked with Armando Bratt, an Italian hydrologist, who took then a position at the University of Bologna. And then he invited me to follow him in Bologna. Actually, I was enthusiastic to go to Bologna because Bologna was close to my hometown. So for the same reason, I was very happy to get closer to my hometown. And therefore I accepted the position as an assistant professor first, and then, all the steps. And I must say that I was not very keen to traveling at that time, so I was fascinated by a position that was close to my hometown. And the reason was that I was involved in sporting activities, in the organization of sporting activities, track and field competitions, and I decided also to launch a track and field team. So I was very committed to remain close to my sport friends.
Yeah.
And this is why I took the position in Bologna.
Did you have a particular event that you, in athletics,
I must say, my life in athletics has been very long, and more as a manager than an athlete. I'm still running. So as an athlete, I would say that I tried several times to train for a marathon, but I never succeeded. I got injured always, but I completed a half marathon in 1:18, 1 hour 18 minutes, which is
pretty good.
Pretty good. It also depends on your age, on the level of training, so that's it.
But I wanted to ask you also about working with Renzo Rosso, because he's quite a character. He's also been interviewed in this series. So, how was that for you?
You know, he formed a large group of PhD students, and indeed he is quite a character. I fully agree with you. And he wanted us to be very independent. So at the beginning, I must say it was very difficult for me. It was difficult for me to really figure out what research was. It took a long time for me. At the beginning, I thought it was something that was not really my job, because, you know, I found it so difficult to understand the mechanisms of research. So at the beginning, I was really very discouraged. But on the other hand, given that he wanted us to be very independent, he gave us the opportunity to be very creative, and we formed a very good team. So at the end of the story, my PhD was a very useful experience, because I established cooperation that lasted for all of my life, and I must say that Renzo was, he was not attending us so much, but he had some brilliant ideas. For instance, the idea of focusing on long-range dependence came from Renzo. And during a conference, he just said, you should study this. And I must say, it was really a very good suggestion, because I really got passionate of it. I could realize the importance of it. So, as I said, at the end of the story, it was a good experience. But yeah, Renzo is a character.
But that area of stochastic hydrology with persistence has been around for a while, even though not many people are taking it up. And there was Hurst, of course, and then Mandelbrot and Jim Wallace. Did you meet any of those people, or
not really. I got the opportunity to exchange emails with Jim Wallace. And my feeling was that he was also a character, another character. But unfortunately, I never met them. And, you know, I didn't have many opportunities to travel. The situation in research was, especially in Italy at that time, was very different from now, and it was not very international. So Renzo, I must recognize, I'm happy to recognize, he was among the more international PhD advisors in Italy at that time, but still, we didn't have so many opportunities to travel.
But as well as your other PhD candidates, were there any other hydrologists who influenced you at that time as an early career?
I would say, if we look at my PhD, so 90s, second half of 90s, the person who most influenced me was Murat Taku, a mathematician, because Renzo had also this idea of sending me for a visit at Boston University, working with Murat Taku. He was studying fractals. They were very popular at the time, and I'm pleased to say that Murat was very successful in helping me to figure out what research was. And then, after the completion of my PhD, when I moved to Bologna, I met other people who really inspired me. One is Keith Beven, in a certain way, even if, you know, we have different views, but...
had different views,
The inspiration was really great, and I'm also happy to say that I was really inspired by Dimitris Koutsogiannis. And then because he also got interested in the study of the Hurst effect, long-term persistence, so we worked a lot together, and then several others. I must say that I gained really a lot from this community of hydrologists, and I gained a lot through the scientific association. So some people may question whether these large meetings, these associations are really useful for education. If I had to provide my opinion, yes, to me they were really instrumental.
in terms of building up networks and collaborations and so on. It's much better to meet face to face. Before we had the internet, then we really had to do that anyway. But that's been valuable.
Indeed.
But I mean, your areas of research are expanding quite widely since those early days into all the different areas of risk management and floods and droughts and climate change and so on and so forth. And in risk in particular, you've not too long ago become a member of the Major Risk Committee for Italy. And of course there's a history there, particularly because of the L'Aquila earthquake and how the scientific advice was perceived for that. So that must have still had some interesting repercussions in Italy.
Yes, of course, the memory of the case of the L'Aquila earthquake is still very compelling and very stimulating also. And this is a commission of the civil protection, and the commission is in charge of providing scientific advice. In that case, they provided a suggestion to people whether or not they had to leave their houses, and they decided to give a reassuring message. I think the problem was probably the fact that they indeed made a prediction, and the prediction was that they shouldn't leave their houses because there was no risk. But the main problem, I think, was the way the message was delivered, because it was very reassuring, like drink a glass of wine. This is the famous sentence that was judged to be not appropriate. And I think the lesson that we learned from that is that it's not only the message that matters, but the way you deliver it. So we are trying to learn from that and to be in a way more aseptic and scientific delivering the message. I think that if you refer to a glass of wine, it's something that is not scientific and it's emotional. And so this is what we are trying to learn, also the way the message is delivered.
But we do have this problem in another area, for example, the impacts of climate change on hydrology. We know that there are lots of uncertainties associated with projections into the future, so risk communication is really an important issue there. How well do you think we're doing in that respect, in terms of being adaptive into the future and investing into the future?
I think we have two problems when communicating the impacts of climate change. One problem is that the administrators, policymakers, they don't trust our models. And probably they don't trust our models because we have a second problem, which is that what we say is not convenient to them. So I think that we have to change our way we communicate with them. I think that, this is my personal opinion, I decided to focus on the current problems, the so-called bottom-up approach, because I realized that if we continue to predict disasters that are increasingly concerning, we don't get to target, we don't gain the trust of the administration and the policymakers. So my strategy now is to tell them that we have problems, and it's clear, because events are happening, and so let's try to focus on this problem and solve these problems, and possibly with resilient solutions in order to give us the flexibility to adapt to future climate change. So I'm trying to focus on the real technical part of it, on the real current problem. And I hope that this brings a different perspective. And I also think that we have to try, as hydrologists, to cooperate with climate scientists rather than seeking a confrontation. And I think it would be extremely important that we deliver a joint message, because And this would really increase the strength of the message. And I also think that climate science and hydrology really need to be coupled, because the impact of climate change depends heavily on local conditions. Very local conditions, for instance, river conveyance, presence of levees. And so I think it is really important that when we downscale at the local level the climate change predictions, we then associate an interpretation at the very local scale of hydrology.
Yeah, well, clearly with the high resolution models that are being developed now.
Yes.
In terms of the hyper-resolution, so-called, for the hydrologists, the land surface actually becomes more important.
Yes.
As their boundary conditions, so in terms of convection and so on. So I think that process necessarily needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I very much agree. Yeah, this is a good interpretation.
But I mean, we already have. Italy currently has a drought problem, and we've already seen many countries are using historical analogues to try and get responses in terms of those resilient solutions or sustainable solutions. Is that an approach that's worth pursuing in terms of trying to communicate the risks of things that have happened in the past?
Yeah, I thank you for bringing this issue up, because I'm really convinced that focusing on historical analogs increases the strength of the message. Because, instead of talking about projections, I often prefer to talk about what happened in the past. And I think this is more effective, because focusing on facts with respect to administrators, policymakers, is more convenient than focusing on model predictions, because it's clear the trust in model is not so relevant. It's also clear that they have a responsibility towards population, and therefore I think that basing on previous facts is more appropriate, is more convincing, and this is what I believe. But there is to say that there is also the need, I think, of protecting the historical information, because I don't think we have enough culture of the value of data. And I still think that many administrators and policymakers, they don't realize the value of historical observations. And in fact, they are archived, if not destroyed. And it's not easy to convince administrators to digitalize this data, to make them fully available. And now I am committed to improve the situation in Italy. We are launching a research program, because also research is needed, because you need to check this data to focus on uncertainty. And this research program aims to digitalize the hydrological information in Italy, the information that is still available, because several sources of information are not available anymore, like the papers of the ring gauges when they...
Photographs.
Photographs. And we are committed to try to recover them and digitalize them. It is
that's actually one of the very first pieces of software I wrote in before tracking.
Really?
Was to take those charts and convert them to digital form back in the 70s.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, this is what we aim to do. But in some cases, they have been destroyed, unfortunately.
One of the ways in which you are highly respected, Alberto, is in terms of your service to the community, and that's been recognised by the AGU Cowler Award and the EGU Union Service Award. You served as president of EGU, before that of the hydrological section of EGU. All of that must have taken up an awful amount of your time and enthusiasm and energy. But I presume that you felt that was something really worthwhile to do.
Yes, first of all, I would like to start by saying that I like it. So I like interacting with people. It's really something that stimulates me. But there is also to say that administrating a scientific society or being the editor of a journal is not the same administration as managing the department of the university. It's scientific administration helps a lot, I think, in better understanding how science works, and therefore, at the end of the story, also helps us in finding new ideas and new visions, especially. Because administrating a scientific society requires an interdisciplinary vision, requires the willingness to study other disciplines and to understand the way other disciplines develop visions and ideas, which is not the same. So the way climate science works and develops research is different with respect to hydrologists. Hydrologists are, for instance, more technical, more focused on the local problem. The climate scientist tries to look at the big picture, but sometimes doesn't look at the details. So in a way, I really think that I learned and I got ideas by being president of IUGG, and in particular by editing scientific papers in WRR.
I should have also mentioned at the service the time I spent as editor of WRR, because when I was an associate editor, I found I couldn't keep up with the papers that I was given to deal with. So as editor-in-chief for a while, and that must have been quite time-consuming.
Yes, indeed, yes, but I think it was an essential step of my career. I learned a lot. Indeed, it was time-consuming because I decided to increase the rate of rejection without review. I think it was a kind of service to the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I decided, in order to be coherent, to manage myself all the rejections without review. So the preliminary screening of the paper was done by me. But again, I think it was really essential. And I think I wouldn't do that again, but on the other hand, because of course it's an experience that needs to be in a way digested later on if you really want to gain something from the scientific point of view. But I'm pleased to say that thanks to the community, to the ideas, I think I gained a lot. And also it happened to me that I got some opportunities for cooperation, so it allowed me to expand my network. And another thing that I would like to do regarding administrating scientific societies or getting involved in these tasks that may look not really scientific is that they help you very much to broaden your network. And as a person coming from Italy, which it was not really easy for me to establish connections. And so these opportunities also helped a lot to me to form my research group, to gain an international vision and visibility. So I think, to me, if I had the opportunity to go back, I would repeat these experiences.
But one of those international projects within IHS was the Panta Rhei project that you were heavily involved in setting up. That had its final scientific meeting this week in Berlin, and was geared towards bringing together the social hydrology into more focus. Do you have any comments on how that worked out, that overall decade?
I think it has been successful. I'm very happy with it. And in terms of community building first, I think these IHS decades are very good for community building. So it was really something that I think helped a lot the community to gain cohesion and to gain an international perspective. In terms also of scientific results, I think that it helped a lot to gain a broad vision for hydrology, a global vision. If we look back 10 years ago, I think that we were more focused on a single catchment, and we had also some national views. I think Panta Rhei helped a lot in order to broaden the perspective, to go beyond the catchment, to go beyond the national boundaries. If you think in terms of data sharing, for instance, 10 years ago it was much more complicated. Now we have the opportunity to to have access to a lot of information at the global level. And I think IHS played a significant role. I think IHS is unique with respect to EGU, AGU. It's more international, it's more global.
It is more global.
Yeah, it's more global. Yeah.
You've received many awards in your time, including the Douche Medal of IHS and the Darcy Medal of AGU, as well as being elected as a fellow of the AGU. It's always invidious to compare awards, but was there any one that was particularly important to you?
I would say the AGU fellowship. It has been particularly important because it comes from the other side of the pond, of the ocean, and it looks to me like something that has more went beyond my usual network of co-workers, and also I think it is important to me because it is particular for a non-native speaker. I'm not sure I can deliver what I mean effectively, but for a non-native speaker it's more difficult to interact with the Americans rather than Europe, because in Europe almost everyone is a non-native speaker and the communication is much easier. And for me, getting connected with the AGU and at the end getting recognized by AGU, getting connected was not easy, and getting recognized was something really good. Yeah, special. Yes.
Okay. One of the things that we really should discuss is your commitment to open science. And particularly making software and data free available, the idea of the virtual laboratory that you've suggested as well. Can you perhaps expand on that a little and say how important that you think that might be in the future?
Yes, I think this is quite obvious, but I really think that openness is the key for gaining global visions and for promoting hydrology and environmental sciences in general, geosciences at the global level. And openness not only in terms of data, not only in terms of software and publication, but also openness in education. We really need to make education fully accessible. And I started 10 years ago actually in making the videos of my university lectures available on YouTube to everybody. It was not easy because I had to trade with the university in agreement because they didn't really like it at the beginning. Now it's accepted, but at the beginning it was not easy. And I'm now proud to say that everything is on my website, is free, and including the lectures and the tutorial documents for students, which are available in the form of web pages, completely open access, and web pages because I really think that now internet, the web, is an essential tool for education, and I really think we need to use links and continuously updated links in order to give to students the information, the latest information available. And I started 10 years ago to say, in a very provocative manner, that books are dead. Of course, they are not dead, but I really think that we have to look at the future with a different perspective in terms of education. Because it's evolving so quickly that books are too static, in my view.
Yeah, that's probably a good point to stop in terms of looking to the future. So thank you very much indeed, Alberto. It's been a pleasure to do this interview.
Thanks again for inviting me and for organizing this interview series. I'm also passionate of the history of hydrology, so I think this initiative is really, really great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.